Dr. Amir, the day is finally nearly upon us, children finally going back to school, but there are things in place and people will notice a difference when they get into school. And it's well worth sort of cluing up on what those differences are and what those will be, so you don't get too much of a surprise when you go through the door.
Yes, that's right. So March the 8th is when England schools reopen. There may be some parental and even child anxiety around this, but things will be different this time, particularly in secondary schools and colleges. So social distancing will be observed as much as possible, but where it can't be observed, and this includes classrooms and teaching areas, people in secondary schools and colleges will be asked to wear a mask. They don't have to if they don't want to, but they're encouraged to wear masks. Lunchtimes and break times may be staggered to avoid large groups of people congregating in one place. Hand washing is going to be encouraged throughout the day as well. But the key part of all of this is regular testing, and we're going to introduce lateral flow tests into these educational environments, something that we haven't done before. And what that means is the initial 3 lateral flow tests. So these are these quick COVID tests that give you an answer within 30 minutes through a nose or a throat swab, and a throat swab. It can be both. And students will be asked to take 3 of them initially in school or college over the first few days. And the idea is that they get used to what it feels like, what it involves. After that, they'll be asked to do 2 of them a week at home on evenings and weekends, ideally, to make sure they're not carrying the virus. Because the thing we know about young people in particular is they can carry the virus and have no symptoms whatsoever. So it's really important that we isolate those people and stop them from spreading it around.
And parents are involved in that as well. Test for parents. Just tell us how that's going to work.
Yes, so if you've got school or college age children, I shouldn't say children, really, young adults in terms, then household members can get regular tests as well. So they can order them through the NHS website or through schools. There's lots of different ways they can access those tests, and they're encouraged to test twice weekly as well. None of this is mandatory, but it is encouraged, and we all want to come out of this lockdown. We all want schools to continue to remain open, and one of the key components to that is regular testing by people at school, but also their families.
In terms of the face masks as well within those sort of classroom environments now, do you think that that's something which people will be open to and sort of keen to be involved in?
Yeah, I think we've been in this pandemic for long enough for us all to get used to wearing face masks, whether we like it or not. And they do reduce transmission. They do help protect the wearer of the mask as well. Now, the rule generally for supermarkets and shops is people above 11 should be wearing masks anyway when they go out and about to those areas. So this is not really that different. It's the length of time that may feel different. And remember, this is in areas where they can't socially distance. So there will be breaks from the mask throughout the day as well. But I do think people are on board. I think now it's got to a point that we understand the importance of not just the educational aspect of school, but the social aspect of school. And I think there are enough people who know that these measures will help keep schools open, keep schools safe, and will get on board with them this time.
From what you're saying there, it's back to school, but it's not back to normal, and we've got to bear that in mind, haven't we? That this doesn't mean it's the end of the pandemic and the vaccine saved us all. We've still got to take these steps, and we've got to know what those steps are.
Yes, so we've got to keep remembering we're still in the midst of a pandemic. The vaccine rollout has been incredible and is doing great work in reducing numbers being admitted to hospital. However, the virus is still very much out there, and people are still getting infected in higher numbers than we would like. And none of this is ideal. The testing isn't ideal. The wearing of masks isn't ideal, but we're not living in ideal times. We're living in a pandemic, and we've got to make the best of a bad situation, and we've got to get kids back to school and there'll be lots of people who are skeptical about it, resistant to it. But what's the alternative? What really is the alternative? Send them back to school without any of these measures and start the whole thing off again. It's not worth it. Please adhere to these measures if you can.
And we've spoken about all the physical sort of changes that will be going on inside schools as well. Let's talk about the mental changes as well, the mental health of young people as well. Do you expect that to improve as young people get back into those social environments, those sort of everyday activities that kind of define our childhood years?
Yeah, I mean, they're so important, those years at school and those teenage years in particular. But I don't think we should underestimate the mental health impact that this will have on our younger generations, not just through losing education, but the social interactions, as you mentioned, the developmental milestones we all reached when we were at school, those really important conversations and interactions that we had. Talk to your children about how they're feeling before they go back to school. Children aren't great at expressing how they're feeling, and they may get physical symptoms like headaches, lack of sleep, tummy ache, that kind of thing, that might alert you to some anxiety. If you're anxious, don't project your anxiety onto them. Talk to an adult, but listen to your child. Tell them that it's normal to feel like this. Talk to them about the measures that have been put into place at school to keep them safe. And then I do think, children are resilient. They when they do go back to school, they've lived through something that none of us lived through as children. They'll have a shared experience with other people of their age. There will be a lot of catching up to do, and whether that's possible or not is a different discussion. But yeah, I think I'd be naive in saying that they'll just catch up, because I think it's going to be a lot more complicated than that. But all we can do is support them through it.
What would be that last thing you'd say to a child as they step through the gates for the first time? Of course, we're talking about a whole variety of ages, so maybe it'd be different for different age groups. But what would be the themes of the things you'd say to them as they pass through those school gates for the first time in a number of months?
If I was a teacher, honestly, I'm looking forward to my kids going back to school. And my reaction to my kids is literally just to push them out the door and send them on their way. But I think if I was in school, I'd be welcoming them back, reassuring them, and really trying to make the lessons as normal as possible, the content of the lessons, but not. The other thing we've got to be mindful is that teachers will be offering a lot of mental health support, a lot of psychological support to these children. I think kids are desperate to get back. We just need to make sure that we support them through their anxieties.
Dr. Amir Khan, thank you for your time today.
Cheers. Take care.